Hello, and on today's Elder Scrolls 6 Theory videos, we're going to be talking about the economy. Yay. So, I know what a lot of you'll be thinking, why the hell do I care about the economy in the next game? I would like to be able to destroy undead with magical spells, slay bandits with a mighty blade, but not to sound like a 2008 banker, we could have a lot of fun with an economy. So, the economy's been an area in the past games that hasn't really been expanded on, and that's because a lot of people who do play the game probably prefer it for the combat and the fun things. But in terms of roleplay and immersion, things like an active economy in the game would be incredibly interesting. Just a quick FYI before I go on ranting, there isn't really going to be many visuals for this video, so I'd maybe go and recommend putting on some gameplay or something in the background and then just hearing my soothing voice over that. So, I want to split this video into multiple sections. First, I want to talk about what the in-game economy is and how the previous games have been a bit flawed in this department. So, when you play Skyrim and you're wondering what to do with the copious amounts of gold that you've acquired, you may go buy a ton of ingots to make a new shiny set of armour or hone your smithing skill. Or if you have an overencumbrance of armour and other resources that you've, let's say, liberated from its past owner, you sell it for a quick fix of gold. Now, the problem in the games is that buying and selling resources, the prices stay consistent, relying on your speech skill, of course, in terms of Skyrim. But imagine if it wasn't. If prices of materials suddenly soared and dropped due to an abundance or lack of it in the world, it would definitely add a bit more risk to trading and make it far more interesting and a more tactical process in the game. Not to mention very, very immersive. So, now I want to talk about trade and how it could work for the Elder Scrolls 6. The basis of trade is we have something you don't, and you have something we want, so let's swap it, be it gold, meat, gummy bears. It's the same, and these items will be traded in amounts that make them equal in value, well, more or less. Now, as an example, I want to talk about Skyrim. Markarth, or the Reach, has a large amount of mines and minerals, therefore there's an abundance of things such as ores and ingots. Of course, being more ores and ingots, it means it's worth less in the Reach because there's an abundance of it. But at the same time, places such as Solitude, where the wealthy hang around, doesn't have as many mines, but a lot of excess revenue, and therefore materials such as gold and silver will be worth more there. This is trading. The minerals from Markarth are sold to Solitude because they're worth more there. An example of this is the Trade Routes mod by Taladin, and it's a great mod for immersion. Now, I think that this should be the next base game. It should definitely play a part in it, as it would allow a more strategic way of making gold for the player rather than picking the pocket of a dead enemy. Of course, we don't know where the next game is set, so it will be difficult to speculate who would be trading with who. Now, let's talk about how the player would fit into all of this. Obviously, they would be able to buy products in one place quite cheap and then sell them in another for a profit. Now, this sounds like a bit of an exploit with the ability to fast travel, so there would have to be some form of rebalance. Perhaps if vendors for the materials had limited amounts of the materials, so that the player could still buy and sell materials, but on a smaller scale, so the revenue will be significantly less. But there could be quests that involve working with, for example, larger traders. Maybe even some sort of merchant's guild, where the player could be employed to defend caravans along the road, travelling from one place to another, defending the caravan from bandits so they wouldn't be able to fast travel, balancing it, and at the end they would maybe be entitled to a certain amount of gold depending on the quality of their work, or how many of the resources reached the location. Or maybe the player would have to negotiate between traders depending on their speech skill, so it really does open a wide variety of quests and abilities that could be utilised for Elder Scrolls 6. As well as that, it's important to remember that as in real life, resources and trading do often lead to conflict, and this could come into the game. For example, different civilizations fighting over lands for their resources. It could even come into the main storyline somehow. Maybe working with a certain faction over some form of resource wars over another faction. Now, a resource war is basically fighting over resources, and whoever wins the resource war tends to be the person who fights the most efficiently. There's also another perk of trading in the games, and that's the risk that would be involved. For example, trading resources such as foods and ores is risky, and the reward is decent. But trading items such as skooma, which is obviously illegal, involves the risk of being captured and imprisoned, and possibly being shunned by the NPCs, but the reward would be far greater due to the risk. I mean, who never wanted to play as a skooma dealer? It just seems like another great roleplay aspect. I find these sorts of things particularly useful if, like me, you struggle to play the Elder Scrolls games as a non-combatant character, because majority of the skills are based around combat, and of course amplifying the speech skill and giving it more of a purpose would open a range of roleplay possibilities and kind of balance up that form of character. In the real world, materials tend to increase in value depending on the abundance of it. So diamonds, for example, are a scarce resource, and they're worth a lot, whilst iron is fairly common, making it fairly cheap. As well as this, the cost of these items will drop and fall depending on how stocks of them change, and I would love to see this happen in the next game. For example, as a random event, carrots could become incredibly cheap due to a plentiful harvest. Then the player will not sell carrots in this time as they're not worth as much. But they may choose to buy carrots in this time to sell at a later date when carrots are worth far more. For example, if a harvest has been particularly bad, this would be another case of a random event with prices changing. This means that there is the ability to invest gold in materials, which is risky. As well as this, the player could utilise the speech skill to get a head start on the changing market. For example, they could pay for advice from a spy who may tell you the insight on the future of the market. Or maybe if there's aspiring bandits out there where shipments will be passing through. So there's a huge amount of potential here that the player could use to better themselves. But it's all at a risk. Advice may be bad, or those stocks of carrots you bought may just continue to plummet in value, so it's not an overpowered system. Now, the general mechanic would work well with the game, as it would definitely affect aspects such as the Thieves Guild, which is a prominent part of the games. Perhaps the player will have to acquire a certain item for an NPC, and they could either use their words or their stealth, so it's just adding another option and adding to the replayability of the game. Now, ultimately, I think that the idea of an economy will be welcomed into the game, as it adds an entirely new aspect and really mixes up how the player will play the game, giving them a more intricate way of financing themselves. Of course, the idea of looting dungeons and corpses would still work, but I think that the economic system would definitely give gold and other various resources that we don't normally use far more of a purpose. So I think that it should definitely be used in the next Elder Scrolls game. So, do you think that an economic system would be useful in the game? Would you enjoy playing this way? Please do put down in the comments below what you think and any ideas you would have for Elder Scrolls 6's economy. Thank you for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time.